Hello everybody, it's Tanya and welcome to today's video. Today's video is going to be just a sit-down video where I will be talking about Antigone because I read it, reread it, and now I'm ready to share with you my thoughts, feelings and opinions. This video, for those who are new, is a continuation of my series where I read all surviving ancient Greek tragedies. So I have already a video on Aeschylus, which will be linked up here. I have a first part with Sophocles' first 4 plays also up here, but my previous video about Sophocles didn't do that well, apparently because it's very long. It's 1 hour 20 minutes. But I mean, there are 4 plays in there, and I am talkative. What can I do? What can I do? So I decided to experiment with video lengths and formats. I cannot talk less, but what I can do is I can split the conversation into parts. So that's what we are doing today. Today we are going to talk only about Antigone, and hopefully this video will not be 1 hour 20 minutes long. It will not be. It will not be. Okay, so let's talk about Antigone. Antigone is definitely one of Sophocles', I think, strongest plays. It's one of his most affecting and most punchy plays. I thought it was very well plotted, and I thought it was really well paced. There was not a moment when I was bored. The action moved very smoothly, and it was really well paced. And the ending, if you don't know the ending, you shouldn't know it because it's really punchy in my opinion. So we will not be talking today too much about the plot of the play. I will just tell you the premise, the very kind of first beginning, but we will not go further in that because you really shouldn't know. If you don't know the ending, you shouldn't know. Antigone is the last episode in the Oedipus drama, the Oedipus myth and story. Oedipus was the man who was promised to kill his father and marry his mother, which he has done precisely that. If you don't know the story, I suggest watching my Aeschylus video, because Aeschylus also has a play on 1 episode in this Oedipus story. Aeschylus' play is called 7 Against Thebes. It's also the ending of this whole myth and this whole saga, and I talk about the whole myth in that video, so I will not be coming back to the story in this video, so you can watch that. Antigone is the very last episode in this story. It should be placed last. If you wanted to see the course of the events of the story, like the ending of the story, you would first have to read Oedipus the king, then Oedipus at Colonus, then Aeschylus' 7 Against Thebes, and then Antigone. So this would be like the course of the story. However, these 3 plays that you will find in this edition, so Antigone, Oedipus the king and Oedipus at Colonus, they could be perceived as parts of the same production because it's the same story. These are like events that are happening pretty much one after another, and so these 3 plays, they could be perceived as part of one production, which actually they aren't. They were parts of different productions, and they were written in different years and performed in different years. Oedipus at Colonus, for example, was performed after death of Sophocles. It was his last play. So, and in order not to produce the impression that they are kind of the same sequence, translators of this edition decided to place them in the order these plays were written. So Antigone is actually the earlier play among these 3. The action of this play happens after the death of Oedipus and after the death of his 2 sons, Eteocles and Polynices. Death of his sons will be portrayed in 7 Against Thebes by Aeschylus. This play, Antigone, starts with the decree of Creon. So Creon is the uncle of Antigone and the uncle of these 2 boys, Eteocles and Polynices. He is brother of their mother, Jocasta, and Jocasta was Oedipus's mother and his wife. The whole story. You need to watch the video where I talk about this whole story, because it's like all Greek myth. or maybe majority of Greek myths, I don't know all Greek myths, but it's like many Greek myths, it's very messed up. This play starts with Antigone, when she tells her sister that she is about to defy Creon's decree. After the death of the boys, Creon becomes the ruler of the city. He becomes the king of the city. And he immediately puts out this decree, because these two brothers, Eteocles and Polynices, killed each other, but one of them, Eteocles, was fighting for the Thebes. He was the king of Thebes at the moment. He was fighting for the city. Polynices, he was fighting for his throne. He wanted to be the king. So he was fighting against the city. That's why Creon puts out this decree that Eteocles will be buried with all due respect. He will be given all the honor he deserves, but Polynices will be left on the ground for the dogs, for the wild animals, for the vultures to devour him. He will be denied burial. He will be denied all the necessary procedures. Antigone, being sister to both Eteocles and Polynices, she decides to defy the decree. And she says that she is going to bury her brother Polynices anyway, because he's her brother and she cannot bear the idea of him just rotting on the ground and being devoured by animals and not being able to proceed to the underground world. She invites her sister Ismene to join her and to help her, but Ismene, being more level-headed, being more sensible, less passionate, she refuses, because the punishment if you defy the decree is death. And she just looks out after herself. Of course she wants to bury her brother, of course she hates the decree, but she refuses to go against the power. She refuses to sacrifice her life to do that. And she tries to talk Antigone off that as well, because she's like, we are women, we cannot do much, we cannot go against the law. And Antigone completely disagrees. She's like, you don't want to help me, I'll do it myself then. So that's the premise. And then Antigone, of course, buries her brother, and she's of course discovered, and she has to stand up for what she believes in. She has to stand against Creon. That's when the whole drama happens, and I will not be talking more. Then the rest you can read. As you have probably noticed from my description of the premise, Antigone is very similar, and premise-wise it is very similar and reminiscent of Electra, because we have pretty much the same situation. We have a woman, a complicated situation in her family, injustice done to her family and in her family, and a woman standing up for what she believes is right, a woman standing up for what she believes should be done, standing up against the authority of the city. She also has a sister, a sensible, level-headed sister, who she kind of compared to during the course of the events, when the sister is trying to calm her down, when the sister is trying to talk sense to her, and this woman refuses. So both Antigone and Electra, they are very similar in the situation, their behavior and their decisions. But for me personally, there was a huge difference in these two characters. I had very different feelings towards them. I had very different response towards their actions and what they were doing. If you watched my previous video on Sophocles, I hated Electra. I hated her with a passion. I have no tolerance towards her. I have no compassion towards her. I strongly dislike Electra. In case of Antigone, I have all the respect for her first. I have all the compassion for her. I love what she is doing. At least the way I see what she is doing, I cannot not respect it. And she creates all the, support in me. She creates all the good feelings in me. And I really like the character of Antigone. So what is the difference, you would ask? So I was thinking about that, and I came to this conclusion. That's like kind of my personal perspective. You can totally disagree with me, like leave your comments down below if you disagree. That's just like my personal feeling. I thought that Electra resists and acts out of hatred. Her final goal is to murder her mother, whom she hates with a passion. And the explanation that I found on the internet of Electra having incest with her father actually kind of clicked with me, because of how much hatred she has for her own mother. Like her mom, Clytemnestra, who murdered Agamemnon, who murdered Electra's father and her husband. Obviously it's a terrible deed, but if you know the story, you kind of understand her. You kind of understand Clytemnestra. You see her position, you see what happened, and you know, it's not our civilized time. It's this ancient Greece with like passions and not much laws and not much moral guidance, I guess. So when I was thinking about it, you can understand Clytemnestra. Agamemnon murdered her daughter. He murdered her daughter, he slaughtered her. How would any mother feel? How would any mother behave? Like, don't you think that Clytemnestra, like, you can kind of see where she's coming from? And when you see it, you don't approve what she is doing, but you can't hate her with so much. She's a mother who lost her daughter. And Electra refuses to understand it. Electra is like, well, the god asked for it. How can you defy God? You just have to do what the god asks. But then again, you continue. Why did the god ask for it? Because Agamemnon disrespected the god. Because it all happened because of Agamemnon's behavior and his own pride and his own bragging. So, you know, like, you cannot just accuse Clytemnestra. So, yeah, this whole Agamemnon situation messed up, totally messed up. But like, I cannot just put all the judgment and all the accusations on just Clytemnestra being a terrible person. They're all terrible people. So yeah, I really dislike Electra because her guidance is hatred. Final goal of her resistance and final goal of her actions is murder. And I cannot, I hate her, like, I cannot respect it, I cannot accept it. Electra is just a huge, I don't know, I don't like the character, I don't like the character. There is no compassion, there is no understanding, no respect for her in me. Antigone. Antigone acts and resists out of love. The final goal of Antigone's actions is to bury her brother, is to show him respect, is to show him the last glimpse of love she can. She doesn't want to murder Creon. She doesn't even have hatred towards Creon. She just has love towards her brother, and she disagrees with what Creon is trying to achieve, and she stands up against it. Antigone is acting out of love, and the final goal of her actions is love and respect. And I love it. It immediately creates this feeling of like, yes, in me. Even though like both of them are doing pretty much the same thing, and both of them are very passionate and very stubborn, they have different motivations and they have different end goals, and it makes all the difference to me. It makes all the difference to me. And I have all the love and respect for Antigone, and I just love her. And I hate Electra. I hate Electra. Just, you know, just to clarify, if you still haven't understood it, I hate Electra. So yeah. In some of the kind of reviews that I read on Antigone, some people say that Antigone is being fanatic, which is how I described Electra in my previous video. I think Electra is fanatic. I don't think that Antigone is fanatic. I completely disagree with this statement. Like, when I read it, I was like, no, no. I totally disagree, because, like, I guess it raises the discussion of what is fanaticism. What is the English word? Fanatism, what that is. And okay, Merriam-Webster dictionary comes to rescue. And Merriam-Webster dictionary says, a fanatic person, a person exhibiting excessive enthusiasm and intense uncritical devotion towards some controversial matter, as in religion or politics. Which, okay, judging from this, both Electra and Antigone kind of fit the definition. But for me personally, like, fanatism, what is that? For me, is more important where the actions come from and what they lead to, where this very stubborn behavior leads to and where it comes from. So in my understanding, fanatism is a destructive behavior. It never comes out of love. It comes from egoism. It comes from believing that you are the only right one. Your beliefs are the right ones, and you have to bring them to the world no matter what. And if anybody goes against you, well, then that person is a, you know, terrible person, and you gotta fight him or her. You gotta bring them down, and it's okay to bring them down. You know, it's okay to hurt people who go against your belief, because your belief is the only right one and their belief is obviously wrong, and you just have to, you know, dispose of it. So that's what fanatism is to me. That it comes from egoism. It comes from belief that you're the only right one, and that all the other beliefs and all the other opinions don't matter, because all of them are wrong. Only yours is right. So fanatism comes from hatred, and fanatism brings suffering and pain and hatred again. That's what fanatism is to me. Fanatism is a destructive behavior. It cannot build anything. It can only destroy. And that's what Electra is doing. Electra is acting out of hatred towards her mother. Electra's hate is bringing destruction, which is death of her mother. That's Electra. Antigone is acting out of love. Antigone brings, people can argue with me on that, but in the way I see it, Antigone brings love and respect towards her brother. Like, this is a tragedy, so, you know, keep in mind, like, nothing good happens. But so that's why I'm saying that people can argue, but in my opinion, that's not Antigone's action, that's Creon's action. Creon is the one who is fanatic. Creon the one who is proud. Creon is the one who is acting out of his set fast belief that he's the only right one, that his beliefs are only right ones, and like he has to bring down everyone who contradicts him. That's Creon, that's not Antigone. So that's why when I was reading those reviews, I was like, no, I disagree. Antigone is not fanatic at all. She even has this statement when she was talking to Creon. I really liked it. She says, I was born to join in love, not hate. That's my nature. So yeah, Antigone, love her. And she is not fanatic. I will stand up for Antigone, at least the way I see her and her actions. So that's comparing Antigone to Electra, because they're often compared and they're often seen kind of in connection, because the situation is very similar and the behavior of the women is also very similar. But like I said, to me they have a huge difference. Another Sophocles' play which Antigone reminded me of was Ajax. It reminded me of Ajax because it discusses two similar topics which we met in Ajax as well. The first topic was of old moral code versus new moral code. And the second one is the topic of human pride. So first let's discuss the first one. Old moral code versus new moral code. Creon, you can't just look at him as this terrible autocrat. He is acting out of what he believes. is right. He is acting out of what he believes is the moral behavior, because the moral code of the old Greece, which I mentioned in my previous video on Sophocles, was that you have to do good to your friends and you have to help your friends, but you have to hurt your enemies. You have to hurt them. That's the moral code. And in Creon's view of the situation, Eteocles was fighting for the city, so Eteocles is the friend. Polynices was fighting against the city, so Polynices is the city's enemy. So what do you have to do according to this old moral code? You have to hurt him. You have to hurt him even in death. And that's what Creon is doing, and he believes that that's right. He believes that that's the moral behavior. So it's not like he's acting out some of his selfish kind of motives. He's just acting according to the morals of the period. Just like Ajax was acting also out of the morals of the period. He saw Agamemnon, Menelaus, Odysseus as his enemies because they disrespected him. That's what he believed. And so he acted in his way, and Creon is acting in his way, out of the same belief. Antigone, however, takes up Odysseus's logic, and that's a new logic, that you have to be sensible and you have to act out of the situation. If you have to show pity, if you have to show forgiveness, if you have to show to respect, show it. Even if this person in this moment is your enemy. But if there are reasons, like maybe the person is your close comrade, or like Ajax was, who did a lot of good for the Greek army, who helped hugely Greek army, you don't have to hurt him. Sometimes you have to let it go, you have to forgive it. The difference between Antigone and Odysseus is that they have very different social status. Odysseus, hugely respected, hugely loved man, great fighter. Of course, he doesn't have to stand up for what he believes in. He doesn't have to give his all for what he believes in, because he's already respected, and Agamemnon and Menelaus just listen to him. Antigone is a woman. She doesn't have the same social status. She has to fight harder. She has to give more to be heard. And that's when the drama happens. That's when the tragedy happens, because nobody wants to listen to her. Creon doesn't take her seriously. He takes her as an enemy. And so that's why drama of Antigone and tragedy of Antigone is much more affecting, and it's much more punchy than Ajax was, because Antigone goes through more, she suffers more for the love that she's trying to uphold. So that's the topic of new moral code, when you have to be sensible, and sometimes you just have to forgive, sometimes you just have to still show respect, and not act towards a person as your enemy. The second topic which I mentioned was the topic of human pride. Like in Ajax, Creon is very proud. He is very set in his belief. He believes that he is the only one who is right. You often hear from him that there was a statement from him that when his son is saying that, listen to what city is saying. The city is supporting the girl. They say that she needs a crown, she deserves all the support and love, because that's what she's fighting her. She's fighting for respect towards her brother. And Creon is like, what am I supposed to listen to the city? Do I rule for the city, or do I rule for myself? And he has a lot of sayings where you hear his pride, how proud he is, and he refuses to listen to anybody. His son is too young, Antigone is an enemy, the seer into the future is also bought, and everybody around him is bought, and stuff like that. So Creon is just very, very proud. Again, this play shows that pride is the worst sin of all human sins, and pride brings down everybody. Pride is the downfall to everybody. So yeah, I really like this play. I really like this play. I like all the moral conversation that it has. I like how it compares to Electra, and again how hugely different it is from Electra, and how different feelings it creates in me. So yeah, I very much enjoyed this play. I would totally recommend it to you. I think Antigone is a very important play because it's a play about love. To me, it's a play about love and about standing up for love. Yeah, I just really like it. I really like this type of stories and these types of plays. So yeah, I would definitely recommend you Antigone. And I like how it takes the topics that you meet in his earlier plays, like Ajax, and it just takes them to the next level, and it makes them even punchier, it makes them stronger, it makes them more affecting, and it just really makes a point. To me, it just makes a very strong point, and I loved it. This point about love, point about pride, and I feel like it's really important conversation, and I really loved for what this play was doing. And it just also really entertaining, I guess. Like, you will not be bored reading it, you will not to have pushed through it. It flows, it's very well paced, and it's very well plotted. So yeah, Antigone, definitely recommended. So yeah, that was my thoughts on Antigone. If you have read this play, please let me know what you thought of it in the comments down below. Yeah, now I'm off to reading Oedipus the King. I will also upload one video kind of just discussing my thoughts and feelings about Oedipus the King. And for now, that's it. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you're having a very good day. I hope you're staying safe. And yeah, I will see you soon in my next videos. Thank you very much for watching.